error occurred. Wait a moment, then try again.
It says live on my screen.
You are live. I'm even going live on Instagram.
Whoa. I'm giving you my thought leader pose. This is going to be my headshot when I become an official thought leader.
When do you get your thought leader license?
I'm doing it online, so I'm about halfway through the coursework, and I think they just send you a certificate. It's like being a minister, except now I get to officiate events at the Aspen Idea. What's that called? The Aspen
Ideas Fest. I did it 7 years in a row. It was my probably the most important kind of thing I've ever been involved with. I created the partnership between SiriusXM and Aspen, and that was a wonderful, wonderful thing. But you're going to be, so you're, JL Cauvin joins me now. We're live and very excited to see you. And tonight at 9 p.m., people can watch your new special on YouTube. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But make sure if you're not following and subscribed to JL on YouTube right now, there's so much good stuff. If you're not a subscriber to his YouTube channel, you're really missing out, is what I'm trying to say. We'll talk about it. But just real quick, who are the actual thought leaders that you admire that are either dead or alive? If you could have dinner with a living thought leader and a dead thought leader, whatever that even means.
I'll give you two right now. I'm gonna blow your mind. Bo Burnham, living. Jesus Christ, dead. So some think he lives in all of us, in my opinion, but the conventional definition of dead.
Do you not know? You've never met Bo Burnham?
No.
Why do you admire him so much?
Because I see comedy, art in general, and more specifically to what I like, comedy, really in a much like many things in society, in a sort of downward spiral. And I think he is somebody who is constant, like him, Sacha Baron Cohen, and Nathan Fielder are three examples of people, not traditional stand-up comics, obviously, but doing really creative things still in the comedy space in an era where things are getting more stale, more algorithm pandering, etc. I think he is somebody who, with wisdom and insight and intelligence, that he's able to early on getting his success through YouTube so early, when that was still a newish thing. He saw it for what it was. He became a critic of the internet and social media faster than most people, because he was smart enough, but also such an early adapter and success at it, that he got to sort of the pitfalls of it so quickly. His comedy, he is a legitimate comedy genius.
Yeah, I agree.
And I respect that so much, and it's even more refreshing to see somebody, a decade plus younger than me, where for the most part, I give up on a lot of things involving young people, but to see somebody with that insight and talent I'm a real fan, and it feels good as a cynical, jaded comic to be able to be like a real.
Yeah, I like that. That's why I asked, because you're such a cynical, jaded fuck that when you truly admire someone, I want to know who that is. I interviewed Bo Burnham a couple times back in.
No questions about Christ, I see. Interesting.
It's such a hack answer.
So it wouldn't be your answer. You'd probably be like Karl Marx and Karl Marx's friend.
My dead, I would definitely pick Frederick Douglass.
Oh, and well, you got a biracial guy right here, a biracial legend. As I've joked on stage to not much laughter, I said, my parents' consummation a little more consensual than Frederick Douglass's, but otherwise we're basically the same guy.
You're a social reformer, abolitionist, orator, writer, and statesman.
The most photographed man on my Instagram. They often said he was the most photographed man in America at the time. So I was doing once again a JL joke that works if you are one of the 8 people who get everything I'm talking about.
All right, I'll bite. Why would you want to hang out with Jesus Christ?
Oh, let's just get his thoughts on today. I don't have to. I will be buying John Fugelsang's book, but imagine if you didn't, and you could just go right to the source material and say, all right, let's go through the issues. How do you feel? I'm going to talk to you about this guy, Trump. You give me your holy feedback. What do you think? And then I become the thought leader when I just go out and go, I've got the exclusive rights to my conversation with Jesus Christ. Here it is, everybody. It's a done deal.
Can't believe you just commercialized your meeting with Jesus.
Oh, I'd like Jonas Salk, I would put it out for free. How about that? Take that, Pete.
We don't have a lot of Jonas Salks.
I'd probably like hook up with a lot of women off of it. Like that would be the currency I'd get, where it's like, you're the guy who like spoke with Jesus, right? Yeah, I am. I am that guy. And you gave the book away for free? Yeah. Yeah. That's the kind of guy I am.
And now I just want to ask you about other living people. I just want to ask for the rest of our conversation, living and dead people that you'd love to talk to and what the conversation would be like. Maybe you should do an episode of your podcast and use that as an actual vehicle for the content, because you're such a thoughtful and funny person. It would be really interesting to hear you talk about what your conversation with any of these people would be.
And then I can add impressions of people we don't know what they sound like. So I would just create new impressions of people.
Tonight, 9 p.m. on your YouTube channel, you are releasing a new special. It's you performing as Donald Trump. Nobody does it better. Not even close to does it better. Even those who are really good at the impression don't have the best material. And even those who have great material often have other people writing for them and helping them. Not the case with you. You also have a rapid reaction force, one-man force, when something happens.
I didn't post it, but the reason I was late is I did a 3-minute video on Trump announcing that he's going to host the Kennedy Center honors, and I love the nominees. I love the nominees he put forward, or the recipients.
I actually just saw that, and I can't wait to see your video. But just to be clear, nobody does nobody even remotely comes close to your impression of Trump. And you performed in Canada, and it was a much different reaction for a lot of reasons than you get in America. Not that you don't do really well here, and people can listen to the podcast where
when people buy tickets to see me, I get a great reaction.
Sure.
But Canada, I packed the place, and it was electric. I had this thing that goes through my mind whenever I do a gig now, especially on one where I'm traveling 12 hours by train to Toronto. And I say, I have multiple conversations via text with my girlfriend where I'm like, why am I doing this? And not just like, why am I going to Canada? Why am I doing any of this? This is pointless. What am I doing? And that show was definitely one of the 5 best shows of my life. And I had gotten a videographer, and I was really just looking for somebody to film me. Like, let's get some, feed the algorithm. If there's some really good crowd work clips or some good moments, we can get those up on social media. But by the price he was charging me, I realized, he wants to do like a full special. He came with the 3 cameras, 2 assistants, and the show was absolutely electric. Like, I remember looking at the camera guy, the director, basically, after the show, and he was like blown away and so happy to have, like, he did a beautiful, when I saw his work, it's absolutely beautiful. It's just really, really well done. But he was like giddy because he was just like, yeah, it's a job. I'm going to record this guy. Hopefully it's funny. And it was just one of those shows where it was like 90 minutes on fire. And, the crowd was packed. I did like a 20-minute ad lib speech telling Canadians the reasons why they should want, what I'm willing to give them if they become the 51st state. And then I took like an hour of questions from people. So it's really like 98% ad lib, the show. And, people, like, their jaws were dropping after the show because it was just like somebody doing this incredible ad libbed comedy in the character of the man they hate the most perfectly. And I'm just, if I do nothing else with Trump big ever again, like, this is like such a great landmark or milestone for all the work I've done as Trump. And I just hope lots of people see it.
I'm really excited to see it. I literally am setting a timer to remind me to watch it when it comes out. That's how I'm very much looking forward to it. I love your Trump impression, as I'm saying, and I'm really looking forward to this high quality production that the JL Jinx that you believe is about you was not in.
May I? A little
No,
behind the scenes.
No.
He needed the director needed 3 or 4 eye surgeries following the special. I'm not kidding. It's almost like he saw it through, and the Jinx was like, no. And it like when the priest in The Exorcist takes the exorcist, like the demon, out of Reagan and like it goes into him. That's almost what happened. He had eye surgery 3 days after or 4 days after filming this.
Therefore, he couldn't work on it, edit it, and get it out sooner.
No, he did. He did. It took a little longer, but it's a really, and he said it's his first special. Like he's done a lot of obviously video work and things, but it's awesome. Like I'm so happy with it.
Very, very exciting. And I'm very excited that you are feeling so good about it. So tonight at 9 p.m., you can watch it and share it with your friends. And I'm very much looking forward to it. Well, now I didn't see the news.
And Canadians especially. I mean, even if it doesn't go viral here, I would love for it to become, a national treasure in Canada.
You know what you should do is my friend Dean Blundell's show to promote it.
Did you try to put us in contact? No?
I may have already, yeah.
I never gotten but if you could offline, obviously, thank you.
All the Canadian people I know.
Share the link with him. Maybe that'll entice him if he sees it tonight or tomorrow. Maybe he'll want to, let him see the product first. I'm that confident in it.
Okay, well, let's get to the news. I want to get your take on, of course, today, the President of the United States named Donald Trump announced the Kennedy Center honorees. And a couple days ago, he joked about renaming the Kennedy Center after himself. And he also joked kind of in a post today that he'll be himself one of the honorees. Do I have that right?
No, he's hosting, I think.
Oh, well, that'll be great.
Gutfeld running the writer's room, I assume.
He announced that the awards would be given to singer and songwriter George Strait, actors Michael Crawford.
Take that, George Gay.
Actors Michael Crawford and Sylvester Stallone. Singer Gloria Gaynor and the rock band Kiss.
It's okay to wear makeup and have plastic surgery if you also have sex with women. That's what the theme I'm getting from the George Strait. He was probably like, don't listen to his music, hate country music, but he's straight. We like that. Too many gays in arts. And then Kiss, they made the makeup. They were sort of trans, but they did a lot of sex, probably with some underage women as well. We say that with respect. Gloria Gaynor, don't like her for many reasons, but she said, I will survive. And I survived because I got shot. I got shot and I survived. So, yeah, that's, it's, but those are, to be fair, those are legitimate people. Those are people with real credentials and careers in art and entertainment.
I'm not familiar with Michael Crawford. He was in a lot of musicals.
I think he's the Power of the Music of the Night, the Phantom of the Opera. I think he was the original for that.
Why are we honoring a foreigner? Do we usually honor? He's an Englishman. Is he an American too? I don't know. Well.
Maybe he was friends with Roman Polanski or something. Maybe that was enough to get him the street cred that Trump wants.
We definitely do live in an upside down world. The other thing I wanted to, do you have any other thoughts on him taking over the Kennedy Center or, the types of honorees that he's chosen here? It would seem that the prediction would be that he's certainly not going to honor anybody who is in any way political and leans towards reality.
I don't know if I feel like John Voight may have been honored at some point, but if he hasn't been honored, once again, that's an actor with a strong resume, and to the likes of Kevin Sorbo and Scott Baio, it does say something that for all the cancel culture bitching, John Voight is as loony and as Trump loving as they get, but he's a good actor. So he still works with people and gets on major projects. Like he's a kook. in terms of he'll be doing these weird videos where he's like, God told us he sent down a savior for our country, a man, more than a man, maybe the second coming of Christ, and only Donald J. Trump can save us. And like, he still gets work. He still works in big projects with lots of A-listers. So it's clearly Scott Baio, Kevin Sorbo, you just suck. Like, that, it's not your politics that are ruining your career. But like, there's still guys who are, Vince Vaughn, John Voight, you'll start to get thin, but there are people with talent and careers that are Trump people. But by like the third year of Trump running this, it's going to be pretty bad. Savannah Chrisley of, a bad reality show. Yes, she's one of our great artists.
In the chat, it says, Benny Alexander says, Trump is going to see Gene and Paul from Kiss without the makeup and freak out when he realizes they're honoring two Jews.
Yeah.
I didn't know
they're very Jewish. Gene Simmons, he's got that very Jewish, he's got like Jew fro, but it's been straightened. But he had a lot of sex with a lot of women, so we respect that. He was dipping his menorah candle in a lot of wax.
By the way, well, at least, I don't know why you would say that, Benny, or anybody else, because, I mean, Trump is fighting anti-Semitism as well as any president we've ever seen. Look what he's doing.
By using Jewish people as a battering ram against anti-Semitism. What a fighter.
How is he using Jewish people as a battering ram against anti-Semitism?
Oh, because he's eventually, the blowback is not going to come on Trump. It's going to be on people, the I mean, I don't mean this to demean, obviously, the problem of anti-Semitism, but in terms of going after college campuses, this is in that, if you read about Project Esther, the Times covered this a few weeks ago, which was the Heritage Foundation was like, interesting. What if we use the campus protests to our advantage as a way to undermine and undo liberal education in our elite universities? That alone is enough for people to start, eventually there will be blowback, and it will be on the cause of fighting anti-Semitism. It will be on some Jewish people. Because he is using a real thing to wage a much broader war that has nothing to do with anti-Semitism and all to do with dislike of liberal values and higher education. But he's covering it under the overly broad umbrella of anti-Semitism, and eventually people will just start going, stop with that anti-Semitism bullshit. You know what Trump did with it. Yeah, and it will. And my dentist, who is Jewish, I went outside the box and found a Jewish dentist in New York.
Outside the box.
He said it to me. He said, I'm of course against anti-Semitism, but what this is going to do is going to be 10 times worse for Jewish people in the long run. He was like, he's using it to go after the Ivy League. He's not using it to go after anti-Semites.
Well,
he's using it to go after powerful institutions that are aligned against him generally.
Specifically, there are plenty of people who align with a lot of progressive ideas, values, liberal ideas. They're registered Democrats that are also anti-Semitic in their words or actions. And so there's nothing wrong with trying to combat that. But this effort does not try to combat right-wing anti-Semitism, which is a far greater threat, in my opinion. And if folks aren't familiar with Project Esther, they should go listen to that New York Times. Did a great job covering that or read about it. But just to be clear, in that, this is the Heritage Foundation's idea, and it's run by Christians. And it's basically a right-wing Christian effort, they say, to fight anti-Semitism. But there's this one quote in that New York Times podcast that I'll never forget, which is the woman from Project Esther saying that Jewish people didn't do a good enough job. And organizations like the ADL and other organizations that fight anti-Semitism weren't doing a good enough job. Jewish-run organizations were not doing a good enough job fighting anti-Semitism. So we, a Christian organization, have to create this movement and organization. But it's all part of a plan, which I think a lot of people didn't realize. I didn't, for sure, before that New York Times expose. So,
and if you're going with just the highlights, the anti-Semitism highlights of each side, and not, I know people can always take the higher ground and go, "Oh, it's bad wherever it happens. You shouldn't be doing this." I'm like, the anti-Semitism I think of when I think of the Trump movement is Jews will not replace us in Charlottesville, and the guy murdering 10 people in a synagogue because they might have been harboring, immigrant like adoptees or something. Now, that doesn't mean making campuses unfriendly and uncomfortable and unsafe for other students with your language or aggressive physical contact is good. Of course it's not. But like campus protests versus hate marches and murder, somehow we don't even talk about that anymore, let alone bring it up as like your side is by no means clean on the issue. In fact, you spent your first term whitewashing and sort of covering up for those kind of things as not, no, it's not what you think it is, and it's going to find people on both sides. But once some unruly college students get out of line, it becomes time to extort billions from universities.
It's also easier to say and shorter to say that conservative-minded Americans have always been the anti-Semites in America, and Jewish Americans have overwhelmingly been registered Democrats and been part of all of the important civil rights and human rights movements in our country. So let's just be clear here.
Yeah. It's but we're not a smart country. We're not a focused country. We have no long-term thinking. We're not very good people anymore. So it's a sinking ship, and just enjoy your content while you sink.
Welcome to everybody who is watching live, by the way. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And hello to Annie from New Brunswick, Canada. You've got to promote JL.
Oh, for a second, I think you're going to say New Brunswick, New Jersey. Isn't that where Rutgers is? But New Brunswick, Canada. Let's go. And Trump versus Canada, 9 p.m. tonight.
Trump versus Canada, 9 p.m. tonight on JL's YouTube channel, where you can also now, he's publishing and posting some of his content, that is some of his opinions and some of his political analysis, which we always love him for here, and everybody should be loving him for. And you've got a great new video up about why you think we need a new constitution, specifically a new constitutional convention. And I learned a little bit there because I guess some of the framers, including Jefferson, had talked about the need to update the Constitution every 30 years or something, or maybe you could say generationally, it seems commonsensical given the advancements in technology and multiculturalism and so many other things, that you would think that you would want to take a look at our Constitution, and any country would want say a little bit more about that video, and everybody should go watch that because I thought it was very interesting. It's not going to happen, obviously, as you said over and over, but it was an interesting thought experiment from a real thought leader, J.L. Cauvin.
Thank you. And as I like to always say during these times, just sort of my framing principles are justice matters, the court is not a court, and originalism is faith. Those are just sort of like my guiding principles. What I think, and it was a lot of people took me literally. I was kind of conceding the fact that this will never happen. We won't have a constitutional convention. I think in that it shows that we are broken. And I make the point of both capitalism and democracy, that we now are facing an illiberal democracy and a capitalism that is no longer maybe full of opportunity. Like they both, you know what I mean? They both work in theory, all jokes aside, they both work in theory, but we have now manipulated them and concentrated power in those two things that they are now working against what they're supposed to be doing. And I mean that on both things. And then somebody was like, oh, you're radical socialist rhetoric. I'm like, radical. So I'm just facing facts that wealth is too concentrated, and it's allowing for a concentration of political power. And our democratic system is now being cultivated to be an illiberal democracy where you can say we had elections, but now they are not as democratic as they should be. And the idea that we survived a civil war and put in 3 new amendments, we can't pass an amendment for shit. I don't care what the amendment is for. That tells you that we're sort of broken, that the system we were given that lasted through thick and thin, war, racism, violence, all sorts of things, worked for the most part until the smartphone and Donald Trump. And I think that to me, that says something very profound about who we are as people and Americans now, that this thing that survived, that somebody said, oh, well, they failed before. We had a civil war. I go, no, it didn't fail. We had a war, but after that war, the document became strengthened in ways that we can't even strengthen it anymore. Like what could we even agree today that should be in the Constitution? I would say nonpartisan gerrymandering seems like a common sense thing. No. Self-interested Republicans would say absolutely not. Well, no assault weapons. Let's just get the ambiguity out. You were entitled to personal weapons, but we have constitutional bans on what kind of weapons you can personally own. Wouldn't happen. Like we could not agree on anything, let alone go through the process and find something that we could amend. So it's kind of broken in a way that it's never going to be repaired. And we're never going to get a new one. So I was using it as a kind of thought experiment, saying what we need, we're not going to be better people. So we need a constitution that reflects who we are, because we are so outside what the framers conceived that we are failing at the Constitution in ways that even Reconstruction, post-Civil War people didn't fail.
Yeah, you make a lot of great points about what, if we were to write a new Constitution today, what currently in it would make the new Constitution. And I guess it's an important point simply to understand what the right in America believes. And I think you have to start with what your goals are, with what you want. And we don't agree on what the goal should be. It would seem, in my opinion, that the MAGA movement, Trump, conservative right, only wants one thing: power for themselves.
Right. I think I said that in the video, but that is the problem. Somebody said to me, there's no middle. Compromise is usually where things get done. And I said, the Democrats are like South Korea and the Republicans are like North Korea. The middle of those two things is not a good solution. Do you know what I mean? Like within the Democratic Party, there's such a range of ideas and opinions on how America should be governed, how progressive, how conservative, how centrist. There's a wide range where a consensus building process within the Democratic Party would lead to a sensible, progressive, but not radical, but not radical path forward. The problem is that's 50% of the country. The other 50% are about, like you said, power. It's not about an agenda. It's not about progress or bringing things back. It's about wielding, abusing, and sustaining power. Yeah. And when that's the goal and the agenda of one half of the political process, the middle point of getting things done and helping people in some way, whether it's Bernie Sanders or Joe Manchin, the compromise that group must come up with, and then to formulate a compromise with we don't care, we're about power, and right now we're about power and cult of personality. You cannot, it's the analogy I always say, and then I'll stop blathering. 2 + 2 is 4. The other side says 2 + 2 is 10. You want me to have a solution that says 2 + 2 is 7. Because that's in the middle of right and crazy.
The DMZ.
Correct. I should say correct and crazy.
You know, sometimes I often wish I could have conversations with people who disagree with me on everything when it comes to politics or anything else, morality even. But these conversations, whether they be on social media with strangers or in person, overwhelmingly now, even with people that you think are otherwise smart or principled, devolve into generalizations and labels, including liberal progressives. And what I liked, and when I created my old show, the first iteration of my talk show was no labels allowed. So you couldn't use liberal or conservative, Democrat or Republican. You would call into the show, or we would talk about an issue, a problem, a policy. And when you take away people's argument or knee-jerk reaction to generalize or to use those labels, it's a really interesting and I think informative discussion, because you get to talk about kind of values, and it's not liberals believe, conservatives believe. No, it's let's talk about consumer protections. What kind of protections do you think we should have, or regulations should we have for the environment, or to keep our water and air clean, or, around banking, around scams. There's billion-dollar scams now. People are getting their entire life savings taken away from them. Could we agree on a law or an entity that would protect all of us or try to keep up with these scams? But we don't really often get to have that discussion because it's devolved so much into, and on all sides, into hatred, disdain, and disrespect. So I don't really have a question or anything.
Yeah.
I just feel
I do think I said this in the video also, if people check it out, but I did say I feel like we have a lot of citizen malpractice also, because I am not somebody who believes in necessarily just always blaming the media or the Democrats. In fact, I'm very tired of that people in this late hour of American democracy still blame Democrats for not escorting them through their own citizenship. But I think people aren't as informed as they need to be. When the CFPB basically has been gutted, and there was a rule put in by Biden where it was was it a cap on overdraft fees or something?
Yep.
And that is, talk about a populist, for the people kind of applies to everybody. And the Republicans actually passed a law to snuff that out. They actually got together and were like, no, that's something we definitely, one of our 5 laws that we managed to pass in our term has to be this. And if you're not aware, like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is a real populist, for the people, protecting people, getting people money back from bigger entities that have taken money from them. If you can't bother to know what that is and pay attention and know that, hey, that's something the Democrats did, that's a good thing. Why are the Republicans? At some point, being the educator, the nanny, the lawmaker, and the hero is too much of a burden on one party when the other party is actively just trying to suicide bomb politics. It's the same thing I said about Fox News a couple of weeks ago on social media. I said, they're not, their job is not to deliver news, it's to discredit news.
Yeah.
They sit there so that you don't trust anybody. Their job is done when you just go, well, all media. Really, you think the New York Times, in all seriousness, you can have problems with their editorial board or their headlines sometimes. Do you think the giant amount of work the New York Times is all discredited because like 4 times a year you hate their fucking headlines? Well, a lot of people now have adopted this kind of like, oh, you read the New York Times, whatever. Yeah, I do. There's a reason why it was the paper of record and still is. Not because you found 5 headlines that you thought showed they were doing too much both sidesism or that they don't like Trump just because he's a racist, raping traitor. They deliver the fucking news like, still, like you still get really valuable information, insights, and reporting from this massive entity that has dedicated its existence to doing that. But now it's easier for people to just go, both sides, and then you don't have to be an active participant because you can take the shortcut of saying, well, it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
And we end up with worse bullshit.
It's the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was created as a result of the global financial crisis of 2008, where the housing market bubble exploded, including on me and my ex-wife, who bought a home in 2007. Real smart. We didn't know what was coming.
Classic Dominic.
Nor did anybody. Almost anybody knew what was coming. But
Christian Bale and Steve Carell did in that movie.
Well, maybe the people they played, I don't know that they themselves knew. They're actors. I'm pretty sure they didn't see it coming. But certainly The Big Short, depicts it really well. But, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau should have been something that the vast majority of Americans supported unless they had interests in the entities that were being regulated, including, the big banks who destroyed our economy. Because when you get rid of financial regulations, guess what? When you lose the referee, guess what? Players tend to cheat. So it's a really good example. And I'm glad that you picked up on it, because I did mention financial regulations and set you up for that. And you took the ball and you ran like a goddamn anti-bank hero.
Yeah, well, in 5 years, we're going to have, Wells Fargo crypto lottery as our banking system.
In the live chat, Rachel says CFPB is woke policy by commie Elizabeth Warren. Of course, Elizabeth Warren was, I think, the first agency leader before she got elected to the U.S. Senate. But it makes me think.
No, they wouldn't. She created it. They wouldn't out of spite. They wouldn't let her run the agency. They wouldn't confirm her under Obama because
that's right.
They wanted to be spiteful. I forget. It was the guy who ran for governor in Ohio who ran it.
Jared Brown.
No,
ran for governor. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah. But yeah, it's woke commie. Was that sarcasm or is that a real human being?
No, that was sarcasm. That was sarcasm, but it brings up another news item I wanted to ask you about, because I mean, this week we found out that the federal government is telling a company, I think it's publicly traded, NVIDIA, they make chips, computer chips.
As I said in the video, they went from lotions and aftershave to AI, but that's Nivea.
I think it's I'm pretty sure
it's Nivea, but that was Anyway, continue. Sorry.
And so the federal government is telling a private or even publicly traded company that they have to give 15% of their profits to the government. Now we don't know where that money's going.
I believe that's called wet my beak.
Well, it is a kind of mafia extortion type of thing. But the point I'm making, jumping out of Rachel's, Liz Warren's a commie. They're constantly calling Democrats communists and socialists. They don't really know what that means. But if they knew just the very beginning of it, they would talk about government having ownership over private enterprise and ordering it around and making them, in this case, pay part of the profits. This is a communist thing to do for the federal government to tell NVIDIA they have to give the government money more than just the taxes and regulations that they have to be a part of. I mean, it is, I don't know what else you would call it other than communist or, mafia tactics, obviously.
Yeah, and I assume the libertarians will be marching on the Capitol any day now to protest this.
Right.
They never get tired of shouting, the control the means of production or whatever the fuck the old terms are. But no, it's another example. This is not to do a Hitler comparison, but I'm doing it in a shallow way. It's the Aryan race is blonde, blue, tall, blonde hair, blue-eyed, tall, good features. And who's the leader of this doctrine? A short, angry guy with a weird mustache and dark hair. Like that Trump is literally like it's so oddly similar in terms of just on a superficial way. Forget the real similarities, but the idea of like, yes, this man with tits and makeup and who wears lifts and has a gunt, that's who's telling me what masculinity is and what a man is.
Yeah.
This low T, like saggy, large Marge character is telling men what men are, who men are. And he's kicking trans service people who are doing real stereotypical men's work, kicking them out of the military with no benefits. Once again, not to jump around the topics, but that's what I'm saying. Every day under Trump, sort of satisfying the Steve Bannon theory of, throw a lot of shit at everybody and like they can't keep up. It really is like, I've never been alive, I don't think, to see a day where page 19 of the main section of the New York Times has a big story that would be front page news if there wasn't, internationally and nationally, 13 daily shakeups and tragedies and fuck ups that are pushing serious news to a later page because he just doesn't stop doing catastrophic things or things that will be catastrophes in the future.
By the way, the name you and I were both looking for, the first agency head of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Richard Cordray. If you had that at home, you're the big winner. Also love the word gunt in reference to a man. Marcia in the live chat says, don't forget his lady hips.
That's it's but it's that's how you know it's a cult. And like, these things are no longer like, you're like a cult. It's a cult. When the history books are written 80 years from now, this will be sort of some weird moment in international and national politics of like Jim Jones meets Hitler. Like, it's very bizarre, or Idi Amin or whoever. It's just
what do you mean when you say cult? It's cult thinking, or it's a cult. MAGA's a cult. Just give one specific example of what you mean in terms of the thinking that suggests it's cult-like thinking.
There is a collective worship and a collective cognitive dissonance from what is in front of us and what he's doing and who he is. That it is like they are seeing him through a very bizarre, somewhat, in the first term, I was calling it faith-based, like politics. I was calling that in his first term because it was like so out of step with the data, the information, and what was in front of us. From their description of him to his policies, there is such a bizarre separation that it's like a brain. It almost feels like people who are willingly brainwashed, like they say hypnosis can only really happen to people who are susceptible to it. Well, the bigotry, the combo of bigotry and fear and hostility created a fertile ground for somebody like Trump, who projected cartoonish strength while possessing none of the traits that he said were strength. And they just kept following him along this path of like, he's the greatest president ever. That's right. Every historian thinks otherwise. Every country fucking hates him. No, you can't point to any data, but your vibes feel validated, and that's it.
Speaking of validating vibes, what is a more validating vibe than we have a lot of crime in our town? It's a really interesting thing. I mean, seriously, I do have some sympathy for this. I know that I'm kind of more on an extreme, and I'm a bit more brainwashed into thinking more analytically about the threats that my family should be concerned about. For example, having kids, raising kids, and worrying about, like, I never worried about crime. And the reason I didn't is because I knew that I lived, and it's the reason we bought a house, in one of the safest communities in New York State and America. But my neighbors think crime is rampant here. They think crime is bad. And the reason people think crime is bad is because crimes occur. And sometimes they're terrible, ugly, grisly crimes. And if you hear about them, which you will, because obviously news and media disproportionately has always paid attention to them because it gets your eyeballs and attention and affects you emotionally a great deal, then you would think that there's a lot of crime. When in fact, however, crime is tracked and classified and charted and combated, because crime is a very hard thing to combat. Sociologically, it's always been a hard thing. It's not easy to diagnose and decide what will prevent it, but crime's way down, or crime is almost non-existent, and yet people believe things are terrible because somebody got pushed on the subway last month. One person who it was probably their fault.
Yeah, and I would do it again if confronted with that person. But I think, a perfect example, because Trump, somebody called him, and I forget if it was Ezra Klein or somebody he was speaking to, kind of referred to him as basically he's a social media algorithm. As president, he operates like that. And I would call him, because of his New York City roots, he's a tabloid president. He seizes headlines, and he runs with headlines. He governs by what would make a good New York Post headline, like Laken Riley, the woman who was killed by an illegal immigrant that became a campaign
perfect example. It's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Yeah.
It's like, yes, she died, and government can't be run by the tabloid. It's run by data. It's run by big, massive resources, but Trump campaigns and governs by tabloid headlines, which will hurt us deeply in the short and especially long term.
And, as bad as sexual abuse and violence is, especially against children, the worst violence against children is gun crime. It's the leading cause of death. And a couple days ago, this went fairly undercovered. It was covered and then it went away. In Austin, Texas, a white man shot 3 people, I think dead, in a Target, including a child. Guess what? Big right-winger, big Trumper. And the point of what I'm trying to say is that if you actually cared about crime, you would care about gun violence, you'd do something about guns, and certainly you would do something about the ideology that radicalizes people into committing, because it's always, oh, they were unwell, or they were lonely, or they were a lone wolf, or that. No, they were radicalized, just the way Al-Qaeda and any other extremists get radicalized. And in this case, this kid was a right-wing Trump-supporting guy, and he got a gun and he shot and killed people. So if you really wanted to be concerned about crime, you talk about guns, but we're not allowed to talk about guns. So forget it.
Yeah. And I do have to go now.
Bullshit.
Yeah. I got to go back to work.
Weird that I went on.
No, that's fine.
It's awkward that I went on my rant and then you just kind of like clearly weren't engaged, much less listening. And then
I was engaged.
And when I got done, you're like, I gotta go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, murdering kids by gun is a real buzzkill for me. Sorry if that makes me weird.
He's got to go back to his day job where he is working at an amazing nonprofit in New York, and people should check it out. Neighborhood Association for Intercultural Affairs. And
doesn't that sound like a place that Trump's going to shut down any day now?
You're doing your best to keep people in their homes and apartments, and you've just started there, and I'm very excited to see what you do there. And I'm most excited to see at 9 p.m. your new special. Thank you for joining me, and you can go now.
Thanks.
There he goes. Click out. So I'll keep talking about you. Just hit that red thing at the bottom. There you go. JL has to take the kids to the pool. No, Benny, he really does. He's working from home, but he is working his full-time job. Such a good guy. Such an insightful guy. If you're Canadian and you are watching, please share his special tonight. And if you know any Canadians, text them, email them, tell them to watch his special tonight. Go follow JL on YouTube. And thank you very much for watching here. It's the first time I went live on Instagram. So to you Instagram watchers, appreciate it. I don't have a huge following there, but I am verified, which used to mean something to my kids at least. Anyway, I love you guys. I appreciate you very much. And I am very happy to have you here, especially if you're joining a live chat. It's great. And I miss live radio. This is as close as I've gotten to doing it. So I love having people chiming in there, especially the people who are smart, thoughtful, and hilarious. That's the combination we like here at Stand Up. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and all the rest. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic if you want to support for as little as $5. And you can be part of our community. We have an amazing community of people, many of which I'm seeing here in the live chat, and also Rachel. And so you should join. And we do hangouts, virtual Zoom hangouts, Mondays and Thursdays at 8 p.m. It might be the best thing you do all week. And I'm not kidding. Being in that hangout might be the best thing you do all week. If you're a lonely person or if you're down, those are the best types of people that should join us, because we'll bring you up and make you feel less lonely. Okay, that's my advertisement. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.